Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're breaking down an absolutely fascinating phenomenon that bridges the gap between digital entertainment and human psychology. We're going to look at the newly studied experience of feeling completely hollow or just empty when a beloved video game finally ends. It's a feeling so many of us have experienced, but until recently, science hasn't truly quantified it. We're going to look directly at the research today to understand exactly why our brains react this way to virtual worlds.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll explore the post-game emptiness. Second, measuring the phenomenon. Third, who gets affected. And finally, what the future holds.
Part 1. The post-game emptiness.
To really understand this, we have to acknowledge a fundamental shift. Modern video games, they are not just simple, mindless entertainment anymore. They're actually the third most popular leisure activity in the entire world. And a lot of these titles feature incredibly complex, sprawling narratives. They're specifically designed to evoke deep existential reflection. We aren't just playing, we are experiencing. So I have to ask, have you ever felt empty after finishing a video game? Think about your own lived experience for a second here. You invest dozens, maybe even hundreds of hours into this deeply immersive world. You form incredibly strong attachments to the characters, the storylines, the whole shebang. You literally live alongside them. And then the credits roll. The experience just abruptly ends. For a lot of players, what follows is a sudden, lingering sense of loss, a void. But where did the push to actually study this clinically come from?
Well, the inspiration for studying this came straight from the community itself. Psychologist Kamil Janowicz, along with UX researcher Piotr Klimczyk, noticed that gamers were actively talking about this online. The researchers literally sourced this psychological study from the shared cultural experiences of players on social media, Discord, and Reddit. People were describing a very tangible feeling of emptiness after playing highly engaging games. The scientists saw this happening and realized, you know what? It is time to bring this digital phenomenon into the psychological laboratory.
Part 2. Measuring the phenomenon. So how exactly do you take a highly subjective sense of loss, literally a feeling people are just complaining about on Reddit, and turn it into objective science? Well, you start with data. 210. That's the sample size of the first rigorous study. And these weren't just casual players, right? This was a group of active adult gamers with an average age of about 28 years old, most of whom played games almost every single day. The researchers recruited them from the exact same forums where the phenomenon was being discussed, carefully filtering out incomplete responses and using strict attention checks to build true scientific credibility. They had these participants answer a 20-item draft questionnaire about a game they had recently finished that was actually personally important to them. Let's move to and see how this builds. To ensure their findings were absolutely rock solid, the scientists didn't stop there. They conducted a second study with a fresh sample of 163 adult gamers, this time with an average age of nearly 30. This second group was brought in to confirm the structure of the scale they had just built and to test its relationship to emotional regulation. This dual study approach basically proves that what we're looking at isn't just a fluke, it is a verifiable psychological pattern. Before we look at the exact skill they built, we need to ground ourselves in some vital terminology. Rumination is the habit of repetitively thinking about negative experiences or emotions. Basically, getting stuck in a negative thought loop. The researchers measured this against reflection, which is a much healthier, more positive contemplation of one's life. By measuring a player's baseline tendency to ruminate, the scientists were able to separate general mental health struggles from the specific localized feelings triggered by a game ending. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the researchers narrowed their final tool down to a 17-question scale broken into 4 distinct emotional categories. First up, game-related ruminations, basically how often intrusive thoughts about the game just pop into a player's head. Second is challenging end, which is the actual feeling of sadness simply because the story is over. Third, the necessity of repeating, that immediate, almost physical itch to just boot the game back up and replay it right away. And finally, media anhedonia. Let's focus on that last category for a moment because it's a real game changer. Media anhedonia is the inability to enjoy other games or media following a recent gaming experience. Anhedonia in general psychology means the inability to feel pleasure. So in this context, it's that frustrating feeling where you try to start a new TV show, read a new book, or play a new game, but absolutely nothing clicks. You are emotionally blocked by the previous experience. Interestingly, the study found this was actually the least intense symptom reported overall. But for anyone who binge consumes media, it is perhaps the most highly relatable part of the whole experience. Part 3. Who gets affected? Okay, so we know the phenomenon is real, and we know exactly how to measure it. But the data showed that not all games, and honestly not all players, are created equal when it comes to post-game emptiness. The genre of the game matters immensely. Role-playing games, or RPGs, trigger the highest intensity of post-game emptiness. And why is that? Because RPGs demand heavy investment. You're making weighty narrative choices. You're building deep, intricate relationships with virtual characters. When that ends, the severance is incredibly sharp. Researcher Piotr Klimczyk also noted an educated guess that narrative adventure games, like those classic point-and-click games, likely trigger a similar intensity because they rely on the exact same immersive storytelling mechanics. But hey, it's not just the game. It is also about the player's vulnerability factors. The study found that gamers with specific traits experienced far more intense post-game emptiness. So if you have a strong tendency to ruminate, if you struggle to process emotions in your daily life, if you have high emotional retention, which means you hold on to unpleasant feelings and often feel overwhelmed by them, or on the flip side, if you rely on emotional avoidance by trying to suppress negative feelings entirely, you are way more susceptible. Basically, your baseline mental health acts as a massive amplifier for the virtual lost.
Part 4. What the future holds. The researchers have laid a tremendous foundation here, but science is always an ongoing process. As we look at the broader takeaways, the crucial point is making sure we don't blur the lines between internet culture and medical science. The researchers intentionally kept the term post-game depression because it was coined by gamers themselves. It's exactly what you'll find if you search Reddit. However, they explicitly warn that this is not the same as a clinical depressive episode, which is a very serious medical diagnosis. While there is a link to lower mental health, we absolutely must maintain rigorous scientific integrity and not overstate the clinical severity of feeling sad that a game is over.
Another vital point for our scientifically minded learners is understanding the methodology at play. The current studies are cross-sectional. That means they survey participants all at once. It's a single snapshot in time. And because of this limitation, researchers cannot definitively prove cause and effect. We just don't know if playing these games actually causes lower mental health or if people who already have lower mental health are simply more prone to experiencing post-game emptiness. To solve this puzzle, the researchers plan to conduct longitudinal studies in the future, where they will actually track players over long periods of time. And this brilliantly illustrates a truly beautiful concept, the eudaimonic experience. This refers to media that provides a profound sense of meaning, personal insight, or emotional growth, as opposed to just simple, fleeting enjoyment. The researchers believe their study fits perfectly into this overarching theme. Video games have evolved, folks. They are highly capable of delivering profoundly complex, eudaimonic experiences that resonate with us long after we put the controller down. Which brings us to our final thought. Interactive entertainment is no longer just a distraction. It is a powerful medium that actively shapes our emotions and challenges our coping mechanisms. So, what do you want your next virtual journey to teach you about your real-world self? The next time you feel that hollow void hit you as the credits roll, remember, it's not just emptiness. It's measurable, scientific proof that you just experienced something truly meaningful. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.